athleticism, I guess, just kind of came in, but like I'm not like really a naturally gifted athlete. I wish I was a little more mature and experienced for that one, because maybe that could have been led to different. So we got to super kick and eliminate Carlito. That was actually the genesis of Yoga Ninja. Wrestling scene up here, I feel like is just so pure. Legit one of the best locker room experience I had ever had. WrestlePro crew from Jersey. I love all those guys. The ultimate goal of this is to have a faction. I want to at least have 2 guys. Like I love like the trios aspect of it. We ended up getting a 6-man tag, which was perfect. Like how do we not get that? Probably never would have went. That whole character and story holds a very special place in my heart. First time I had ever been blown up.
Ladies and gentlemen, hosted by Coach C, Chris Sanders, this is Best for Business.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. I'm so pumped for this one. Tyler Payne, man, thank you for joining me for this one.
What's up, man? Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm pumped for this one. Actually, fun fact, I reached out to a good buddy of yours, I think Sean Donovan, and I was asking him a while ago, I said, who would you suggest on the podcast? And you were the first name he recommended, so thank you for everything you've done for wrestling, man.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Sean's a good dude. I don't know if we've ever actually shared a ring together, but quite a few locker rooms together. Nice. So, yeah.
So one thing that blows my mind about you is the yoga and athleticism. So what age did this really start for you?
I guess kind of different as far as the athleticism goes. I mean, pretty much all self-taught, dude. Just like the Hardys on trampoline. I read their autobiography when I was I don't know, probably 12 or 13, and just that's where I kind of basically taught myself how to get comfortable with like gymnastics and being upside down and that rotation ability. The yoga kind of came in later. That's right. I kind of studied exercise science in undergrad, so. Yeah.
So with the athleticism, you always knew that wrestling was the path that you wanted when you read the Hardys books, I assume?
I guess so. Like once, I was just always, I mean, the Hardys, ECW, all that, like that crazy style. I mean, I'm a big fan of Kane too, but just my era, I'm 35. So like late 90s, early 2000s was really like peak for me. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the athleticism, I guess, just kind of came in, but like I'm not like really a naturally gifted athlete. Everything that like I have, I think I just was really self-taught just through my own like learning through exercise science and the trampoline and gymnastics along the way. But yeah, dude.
So when we talk about your journey in pro wrestling, where do you start? Is it Vermont?
Yeah, Vermont was first match.
So what made you start pro wrestling, and what is Vermont's wrestling scene like?
It's definitely grown now. I mean, just like all indies, I mean, it's crazy. There's like multiple promotions in every state. Whereas when I first started, so my first match was 2010. I did a couple of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy or the Chaotic Training Center fantasy camps before then. But Vermont, I think at the time had maybe 2 promotions, one of which was the ETWA, and those guys were the ones that gave me, my first match. I was 20, nice. 2010.
What do you remember about those New England Pro Wrestling fantasy camps? Do you remember the coaches? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, like just the walking in there, that place has just like an aura about it. Like, you know, it's legit. You know, it's like, oh, okay, like you're stepping in somewhere where it's the real deal. So I think the first one I did was in 2007 during the summer. I was actually down in like the Massachusetts area looking at colleges. I think I was a junior in high school at the time, 16, 17 years old. That was the first bump I ever took because I was one of those one-day fantasy camps that they still do to this day with Chase Del Monte. I don't know if Chase was there. I'm trying to remember coaches like Brian Fury. I know Tommaso Ciampa, he was around. Handsome Johnny, who's now Ivar, he was there. I'm trying to think. I did meet Killer Kowalski one time.
Nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember shaking hands with him, and his hand was so huge. It was like shaking, like, I don't know, just like,
Yeah.
like I had 2 fingers the size of a hand. It was
Yeah.
wild, but
So you do
yeah.
the fantasy camp at NWA, and then you start wrestling in Vermont. So what's your journey? How do you get to Vermont wrestling?
Um, let's see. So like, I think I did just that one fantasy camp. I mean, I was still a teenager at the time,
Yeah.
and where North Andover, Massachusetts is, where that school is, that's about 2.5, 3 hours from where I grew up. So that was still quite a bit of a drive to kind of commit to like training, which I would do later on,
Mhm.
kind of on and off. But I think I did another camp like the next summer, like the same deal. And by that time, like, like I had a homemade backyard wrestling ring in my yard. So it's like I'm very comfortable like learning how to rotate and control my body, hit the ropes, things like that. Um, I think I had done a few more sessions at whether it was like a fantasy camp or a few kind of pop in at NEPWA, like on some Saturdays. And then I showed up to an ETWA show. One of my friends from high school, he was actually doing, he's like, oh yeah, I just started with ETWA. I'll give him a shout out. His name's Jobs. He's
Nice.
still one of their main guys for ETWA. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so it's like, all right, like, not to knock Jobs, but I was like, all right, if he's doing it, like, I feel like I can do that. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I could do some pretty cool stuff at the time. And so I showed up to ETWA show, and they just put me in the ring so I could run the ropes, take a bump, do a couple things. They're like, okay, yeah, you got a match. I was just like, what? And dude, like I showed up with like basketball shorts and soccer shin guards for kickback
Wow.
with like tall socks over them. And
Was your name always Tyler Payne?
no, so it started like that first match, and for like a year I was T-Pain. Then it became Tyler Sexton. I ran with that for probably 5, 6 years. And that name came from an accident because I was actually typing in Senton Bomb, like Swanton Bomb, into my iPhone, and it auto-corrected Senton to Sexton. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, like Sexton Bomb. Kind of in Sexton Hardcastle, like Edge. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Sexton's got a ring to it. So yeah, I ran with that for a while, but then I went with Payne is my middle name, and Tyler's my first name. So
Nice.
it's what I kind of fall back on.
So one thing I don't really know if you have an answer for this, I love about your career is your creativity. I look at all your moves, you have special names designed for your character. Where would you say Tyler Payne's creativity comes from?
My own
Yeah.
creativity.
Yeah.
Oh man, a lot of different sources, I guess. Just could be like a good movie that I like, or certain genre, or other like just aspects of pop culture, I guess.
Yeah. So something else you got to do early on in your career. I know people in the States try to check that box off. What was it like wrestling in Canada? Because you've done it quite a few times.
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up right on the Canadian border, so northern
Okay.
Vermont. So ETWA stands for Eastern Townships
Hmm.
Wrestling Association. So they're, northern Vermont and Stansted, Quebec. So that's like their territory. So yeah, like I did that probably within the first year. Montreal actually was one of within the first year. That was a really cool show. It was like this old theater that they converted into like a nightclub. Again, greener than grass,
Yeah.
but so cool to have that opportunity.
I was seeing early on in your career, you had a few matches with them, and you posted a few photos. Do you have any Robbie E stories?
Robbie E, yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned a lot from him. Shared a few locker rooms with him. I think one of the first times, so he might have done a show from another company from like Massachusetts. I want to say VCW, Victory Championship Wrestling. I don't know if they're still in existence, but they came up to put on a show somewhere in Vermont, and he was like their guest star. I think he was in TNA at the time, like when he first started doing his gimmick. And he did a seminar which I really liked, and then fast forward a few years, I think we ended up we worked a tag match together once against each other, and then we had a singles match, and then maybe did something at like World of Hurt in New York. But
Nice.
yeah, he's a good dude. Always a fun time to share the locker room with him. Good stories.
So when you talk about TNA, I'm curious, How was your Impact Wrestling tryout? How'd that one come to be?
That was fun. I wish I was a little more mature and experienced for that one because maybe that could have been led to different. But that was when they were doing gut check at the time, so they would do like bring a guy on TV occasionally. But this was out in this was St. Louis, Missouri. I remember just like applying for it at the time, and they basically do like I think they'd only take like 8 or 10 guys, and yeah, so they brought me in. They accepted my like invitation, I guess what I applied for. I think it was done online. And I remember it was like a little bit of a seminar, like D'Lo Brown was one of the main coaches at the time. And we ended up getting matches, like it was like a house show, I think they ended up doing. I don't think it was a televised event, but we ended up getting like dark matches.
Yeah.
So
was anyone else at that show?
Oh. I think that was 2012. So I was like 2 years in or less than 2 years in, and just like, still I could do cool stuff, but I was still learning like what made sense, psychology and all that.
But to be 2 years in and get a trial, like still people are like 10 plus years in trying to get something like that.
Yeah, I know it's all timing. So much in pro wrestling and making it, I think, is just one. It's like about obviously you got to put in the work in. It's who you know, and then timing. Like with injuries and everything, like if you in your all the stars got to align.
Was anyone else at that tryout that you remember?
One guy that I know of, Gregory Iron.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've wrestled Zach Gowen a couple times, and
nice.
So they were a team, or obviously they're friends, and I'm trying to remember. I have like a group picture of everyone in there, but. Yeah, it was a good time.
So when I look at your career, you've wrestled for some of the top indies, at least for me growing up. So I'm curious if you have any matches or moments. The first place I want to ask you about, do you have any moments that stick out wrestling for Chaotic Wrestling?
For Chaotic, yeah. I mean, I actually only wrestled for Chaotic a handful of times. So a lot of the other promotions I wrestled for in the Mass area were like Lucky Pro, nice. XWA, a couple others, Rhode Island, like RWA, RICW, but Chaotic, I came back to start training at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy in around 2018, 2019, because I felt like I had never really completed my training there. You know what I mean? I felt like, honestly, I had just gotten put on shows too quickly early on in my career and didn't really learn some of those fundamentals.
Okay.
So I came back to training at NWA kind of later in my career, just like, I really want to just learn some basics, get back to the basics. Mm-hmm. And then I think I did a couple shows with them. One fun one is when I first adapted the yoga ninja kind of persona early on. It was like 2018, 2019. It was a New England title match against DL Hurst. I think we had a pretty fun match.
Yeah.
It was a lot of character work. It was, at that time, I was like kind of transitioning from doing less like high spots and athletic stuff. I would still implement them, but more like I would see a lot of times people in the crowd, like, like the dude that's in the wrestling and he brought his girlfriend into the show.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's not quite like, and she's like, okay, I really wanted to start like panning to like those fans.
Nice. Yeah.
So like that's what I was trying to like grab, almost like non-wrestling fans to just be over the top entertaining. It's like Tony Perkis is a character from the movie Heavyweights, which kind of was adapted into Dodgeball. And so that was kind of the early inspiration for that character, and just to give something new to a show.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what was like the inspiration for the Yoga Ninja? Because I remember early in your career, you're doing like coup de grace off ladders and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a cool involvement for sure. Like again, the early days were Tyler Payne, or T-Payne into Tyler Sexton was also known as the new hotness. So it was Jersey Shore show was really big at the time. I think that's why kind of like Robbie E and I were like, kind of gravitated towards him. Even though it's like I didn't see Robbie E, was like, oh, I'm mirroring my gimmick off of that. It was just what was hot in pop culture. Like a lot of times people end up with similar And then that kind of morphed into more of like the hybrid I was calling myself, which was kind of, at that point I had started my own business. I actually owned a gym, like a training studio for a while, and I was just doing tons of like cross training. And so that kind of morphed into that character, just doing like more athletic stuff, more kind of high flying stuff, which then kind of morphed into the yoga ninja.
Yeah. So I'm talking about companies now. I know Chaotic and I knew XWA. Do you have any either XWA, RWA, RACW, any moments that stick out there? Because those are companies that at points I've worked for, so that's cool to hear.
That's awesome. When did you work for them?
So right now, I've been RWA's commentator for like 3-4 years. RACW I used to do when I was like 12 years old. I managed, which I shouldn't have probably done. And XWA, I was going to shows as fans. I was looking at some of the cards that you were on. I might have been there like 11, 12 years old watching you.
Probably, man. Yeah, that's because you're Rhode Island, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my wife's from Rhode Island.
Nice.
So we go there like, yeah, at least once a year. So that's cool. Yeah, XWA was another one. That was a really cool, like 2014, 2015 era XWA. I feel like that locker room was, I mean, like AJ was there, Samoa Joe, of course they had like Tommaso Ciampa, like Ivar, like Paul London, JT Dunn. Yeah. I just feel like that era was like such a stacked locker room. I was like, I don't know, felt like at some points like I don't belong, I don't deserve this to share this locker room. But one cool moment I think was, let's see, I remember doing like a big, I think they call it their Extreme Rumble, and I actually got to super kick and eliminate Carlito.
Nice.
With a little help, I think JT Dunn maybe gave me the assist on that. Technically, I was the one that threw him over.
Yeah, that's all that counts.
That's it.
Yeah. For ETWA, is there any matches that stand out for you?
ETWA, there's been a few for sure. One of the early ones, one of my first rivals was the Jaba King. We had a casket match, and that was like really the first match that I got to do like extreme or like kind of hardcore stuff. And at that point I haven't really had the opportunity to do any of that, and I was like, okay, like you guys have seen me, but like I wanted to do, so like we did stuff with ladders and tables and gimmicks, and I think that match too was like a good culmination of our storyline. We were going for the Canadian title at the time.
Okay.
That one sticks out for me. One a little bit later on was when I won the ETWA title against the Buzzard. He's one of the owners or the promoters of the show. We had what was called the Wicked Wonderland match. So it was just like a hardcore match. Yeah. The first time I ever did a 450 splash.
Wow.
And broke my nose doing it. The guy was I put him in a little too close, and so when I hit it, I like hit more of like my abdomen and my pelvic area.
Yeah.
And so my face just went boosh.
Yeah.
And nose. I remember as soon as it hit, I was like, oh, and you can see there's a match on there. It's YouTube. I'm like checking my nose. I'm like, and it starts pouring like a fountain. I'm like, yep, that's broken.
So when you talk championships, what was it like to win the WOH championship?
Which time?
First one.
First one. That was fun. So I think that also was like a heel turn for me too at the end of that. So that was against Kyle Brad. Cool dude. We have kind of similar professions in the fitness world. I think I won with a 450 on that one too. Yep.
You didn't break your nose that time?
I didn't. No, I had it more dialed in back then. At that point, I actually owned my own legit wrestling ring, and yeah, so I had things kind of a little more fine tuned by that point. I think that was probably a 4 or 5 year gap between those two.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool moment right after the end. Like it was like a big baby face pop, and then someone like awarded me the title who was like another baby face, kicked them in the nuts, and basically just like turned on the crowd. And that was actually the genesis of Yoga Ninja. That's where I really started tapping into like, you know, all you fans are like, you're dirty, you're gross, you're fat, you're out of shape, and kind of leaned into like the just fitness, yoga, I'm better than you type character. Yeah. So that was, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That was kind of the pivoting moment of that character.
Nice. So the last company I want to ask you about, before we get to WrestlePro Alaska, what about WrestlePro? Because you've been down there and you've had some decent matches there too.
Yeah, WrestlePro is awesome. I love the Rahway Rec Center.
Yeah.
I guess I've had a few multi-man matches there, one of which was super crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kaz Jordan and TJ Crawford. I think that was the four-way. I mean, those are all awesome competitors right there. TJ and I were talking like we'd love to do a one-on-one because I think we've worked a few different multis together. But that was a pretty cool moment. At the end of the match, I wasn't playing or anything, but super crazy. He gave me the little rub there with the hand raise after the match.
Nice.
Action Andretti and I had a pretty good singles match. I was a little banged up a couple months before that, so I think I was operating at like 75%. So not that I felt like anything I did held me back. Would have been cool to see full throttle on that one.
Yeah. Now, what's something else you got to do pretty cool? Not a lot of people can say this. What is the atmosphere like wrestling in Australia?
Oh man, so cool. That experience, that tour was one of the top three probably moments of my career doing that over there. Yeah, Perth New Horizons Pro Wrestling. That was really cool. So I went there with KM Kevin Matthews, and that crowd was just electric. I think that at the time I was working pretty much heel as the Yoga Ninja, and that crowd just like they're like, no way, you're they ate it up.
Yeah.
That was a really cool match. Yeah, against Cameron Stone.
Is there anything that you notice about wrestling in Australia compared to like the States or anywhere else?
I would say they're really just looking for a good time, like the fans. You know, I feel like some other crowds, even like it's similar to Alaska up here, where it's like, you know, they don't care as much about a big spot. They'll appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But like if you're like really narrowing your character work and taking time to like do your character work and bring people in,
yeah,
and they're just like, you know, they want to have a good time. And if they're having a good time, you're going to have a good time. And it's just like it's a synergy.
Yeah. I'm curious, what was your first interaction with Kevin Matthews?
First interaction. So that would have been the WrestlePro Alaska, the first Northern expansion tour that I did. That was the first time wrestling after COVID.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Kevin, awesome dude. I mean, he's been kind of almost like a big brother to me in a lot of ways. And in wrestling the last few years has helped me with opportunities. But at the first time, I think he was the promoter for the show, but he was doing commentary with Zach Gowen for my match against Matt Cross.
Nice.
And I remember telling him after a match, I'm like, he's so like just extroverted and so much personality with his commentary. I'm like, dude, you're like a big jacked up Joey Styles. Like, oh
yeah.
But yeah.
What was that match like having with Matt Cross? I remember seeing an Instagram post or something leading up to that one.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. I think originally it was supposed to be a triple threat. I was living in Juneau, Alaska at the time, which is just the capital of Alaska. It's a little more remote, it's less people. And I had reached out and was like, you know, I ended up getting a spot on the Northern Expansion Tour. And I had the opportunity with Matt Cross. I thought we gelled really well together. And that was my first match in, like months, maybe even like close to a year, because that was early 2021. I remember after the end of it, I was like, okay, that was like a decent match. But I remember the fans and like KM and everyone just like really digging that match. I think that match really helped kind of get me noticed a little bit for the WrestlePro and Alaska crew.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty grateful for Matt Cross and everyone else for the opportunity for that.
So you lived all over. So what made Alaska be the destination right now?
It's been a journey, man. I mean, I think when COVID hit, it threw everyone for a loop, right? So at the time, I was running the gym, business owner for probably 6-7 years at the time. And it was at the point where I'm like, all right, I'm kind of ready for a change. Like, I'm married. My wife kind of had an opportunity. She's in the science field to get back into kind of some of her work. And one of the locations was Juneau, Alaska. And it's like, We don't have kids. Wrestling this was like a couple months into COVID, so maybe spring or early summer. And we're like, what the heck? We've always watched like those Alaska shows, those adventure shows and whatnot. Yeah. And so, yeah, we kind of took a leap of faith. Again, wrestling was on pause. Like my business had been shut down for a couple of months because like close contact and fitness and all that. We opened back up. I ended up selling the business later and doing well on that. So that all worked out. But moving to Alaska was just kind of like adventure and just kind of like almost like a hard reset of life. Because I was like, I don't know where wrestling's going to be. I really had no intention of moving here and having Alaska, of all places, be what kind of launched me into these last few years have been crazy. Like pretty much all the best moments that have happened, all the opportunities, the extra work, AEW stuff has been since I've been living in Alaska, of all places, which is still, when I sit back and think of that, it's kind of wild.
So what is it like 5 years later, or however years later, moving there? What's it like living there?
It's an adventure, man. It's really cool. I could see myself living here for the rest of my life. It's growing up in northern Vermont. It's not too different, like, climate wise. I'm used to long winters. I'm used to being dark out at 3:30 in the afternoon. The wrestling scene up here, I feel like is just so pure and like untainted from any of like politics or any of sort of some of the bad stuff that can come with independent pro wrestling.
Yeah.
With WrestlePro Alaska and 907 Pro Wrestling, which is the school up here, which has now turned into a full-fledged promotion, being involved with that, so I was on the first 907 Pro Wrestling show that was 4 years ago. So we're about to celebrate our 4-year anniversary in a couple weeks. So that was June of 21, to be on their first show. And just to be a part of like the infancy period of that and see the rise of that has just been so cool. I've always, like, with the creativity, I've liked to be on the ground floor of things, like to help businesses like grow. I like to just, I don't know, be on that.
So I've talked to a lot of guys, whether it was LSG or the Graysons, and everyone says a huge goal for them was to try to check off all 50 states, and Alaska is one of the hardest. So before WrestlePro Alaska, is there any wrestling that you're familiar with down there or nothing?
No. I had Googled wrestling in Alaska just for kicks.
Yeah.
When my wife and I were thinking of moving here, I'm like, is there even anything like, right? This is easy. Everything exists, and a poster came up of WrestlePro Alaska. Okay. It was the one, I think they had Bret Hart on there. I think it was iHeart Wrestling, one of their first or their second shows. I think they started in 2018 or 2019. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's a company, and Bret Hart's on the poster. I have a mutual friend of like Joey Janela, and that's how like I got in contact with WrestlePro Alaska. It was pretty much through his name's Adam Lash. He promotes Green Mountain Wrestling in Vermont.
Yeah.
And he was good friends with Joey Janela. So again, it's this business is, you're a good dude, it's all about who you know. And take care of each other.
So what's that 2021 first tour you do for WrestlePro Alaska? How's that experience?
That was amazing. Amazing. Because it's like to be out of it for so long and have a part of you think like, oh, this, even like you're kind of content with that being it. Again, it's like COVID's happening. You don't really know. The first few months were just like scary to all of us.
Yeah.
But that tour was just like, it relit something to me. I'm like, wow, like I thought just all the guys in that locker room, it was like legit one of the best locker room experience I had ever had.
Yeah.
The WrestlePro crew from Jersey. I love all those guys. I love going to Jersey, but them coming up and then kind of merging with some of the new, which were like year one guys that were having their first matches from 907 Pro Wrestling Academy. They weren't quite a promotion yet, but they had a school for the last year or two. They kind of 907 Pro Wrestling Academy and WrestlePro Alaska like helped each other out in ways grow. So it was just a really unique experience to meet so many new people, meet guys from Hawaii. There was so they had a few guys from Oos Wrestling that came up that were a part of that Northern Expansion tour. Mm-hmm. So it's like we had guys from Hawaii, from new students in Alaska, guys from Jersey, even all other states. There was more. I'm trying to think who else was on the show. Like Matt Cross, Katie Burchell.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Yeah, that was just like, it was followed by, I mean, there was just like, there was so many, it was like, again, one of those experiences, like, it's kind of just surreal.
Yeah. What was it like to wrestle KC Navarro? How was that match?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
First time I had ever been blown up after the match.
Wow.
Yep. So that was a part of was that the Dream 16?
Yeah, the Stream 16.
Yeah, because they were doing the first crowning the champion for WrestlePro Alaska. I hadn't worked in 5 or 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I had done the Northern expansion tour, which was like 5 shows. Again, this was 2021, so only like a handful of matches that year because I was flying from Juneau to Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Alaska's like one of the only states where you fly intrastate.
Wow. How long's the flight?
It's like an hour and a half or 2 hours from Juneau, Alaska. But the alternate route is you take a 5-hour ferry and then drive 19 hours.
Okay, yeah.
So it's huge. People like still like the size of Alaska is nuts. But anyway, so KC Navarro. So I think I'd done a Northern expansion tour. I had done the 907 first show, which was June. And then I don't think, because WrestlePro Alaska had another show in August that I didn't do because I had like a lot going on that month. And so their next show was that December one. So there was a 5 or 6 month gap that I hadn't wrestled. And, like I stay in shape, but at that point I was doing like a bulk. So I was just doing like tons of weights, trying to put on size, trying to fill out a little bit, minimal cardio. And you know how fast Navarro is.
Yeah.
He just like is a ping pong ball in there. And so that match was like, it was a great match. There was one point match early on. I think he hit me with an enziguri connected. And I remember like seeing stars and I remember forgetting the whole match. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like we were probably 1 minute in maybe. And I was like, I have no idea what we're doing. And then he's like, do this. And then I'm like, okay, all right. Then it all came back.
Nice.
But then, I think it's on YouTube somewhere. And after that match, I remember going back and I was just like, wow, this is what I've always heard, like, oh, don't blow up. And I was just like, I'm never going to blow up. Like, I'm the hybrid. I'm the ninja. I'm the yoga ninja. But that match, I was blown up.
Wow. When we talk WrestlePro Alaska, is there a match that stands out to you that you've had?
Oh, that's a good question. There's been a bunch.
Yeah.
I guess recently, let's see, I've done 2 triple threats with Jay Lethal.
Nice.
Those were a blast. The most recent one was with Jack Cartwheel.
Nice.
WWID guy. He's a fun dude. And Jay was in that one too. That was the last, I think that was last fall. Other triple threat was with one of our homegrown 907 guys, Oren West. That was a fun one too. And just that first Northern expansion tour, I think, holds a good place in my heart. From the Matt Cross match, we ended that expansion tour with the 8-way ladder match.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. It was the first time I did like the yoga crow on top of the ladder and then into like a senton.
Was it on Vargas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious, whose idea was Planet Payne Fitness and Performance? Yours? And did you hand select who was going to be in it?
Kind of. So like that, again, that kind of stirs from, if you're like the movie Heavyweights, Ben Stiller with Tony Perkins into Dodgeball, they're very similar. And he always had a faction. And so like when I started that gimmick, like whether it's chaotic and kind of back east, I'm like, the ultimate goal of this is to have a faction. I want to at least have 2 guys. Like I love like the trios aspect of it. And then so it was actually during those 5 or 6 months that I had off in 2021 before the Navarro match. I was just, my brain's always going with ideas and creative ideas for character work. And I'm just like, I was messaging JT, who's the owner and promoter of 907. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, just checking how he's doing. And he's like, I want to, when you come back, what do you think you want to do? Because there was like some openings in the card or whatever. I was like, I've always wanted to do a faction. And I kind of explained to him, like, it's like dodgeball. Yeah. And so I'm like, there was a guy at the time who was kind of doing a fitness gimmick at 907, Chad Dillon, one of my good brothers now, best friends. And he did this spot on the ropes. I don't know if you've seen any videos where he chokes a guy while sitting on him and he bench presses the top rope.
Nice, yeah.
I thought it was genius. Like, I'd never seen anything like that before. I'm like, that fits. Like, I'm the yoga guy. I need like a muscle dude. Ideally, originally I wanted like a muscle dude, and then I wanted like a female character.
Yeah.
But I ended up with two muscle dudes, which were my heavy, which was fine. And so the other dude, Preston Worthington III, another bodybuilder dude. I have like my power lifter, I have my bodybuilder, and I'm the yoga ninja. So they were already a team. Again, they were both pretty new, a year or so in, and it just clicked, man. Like we ended up getting a 6-man tag, which was perfect. Like, how did we not get that? That probably never would have went. But one of the shows on the crowning a champion, I think there was 2 or 3 shows we did the same time when I did the Navarro match, where we had a 6-man, and it was myself, Chad, and Preston. And like, I had everything prepared. Like, I had the bandanas, I had the t-shirts, I had the entrance in my mind, I had the music. Like, again, I've been playing this in the multiverse of my brain already. Like, it had already happened, you know what I mean? I just manifested it into existence. And so the entrance, we cut a little promo, and I mean, it popped the boys. So, and then the crowd ate it up. So that was like the next 2-3 years was Planet Payne.
How was that first 6-man tag?
It was great.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we faced a few other Alaskan guys, local guys. I'm trying to think who it was. Jerry, Oren. Was that AJ? Yeah, I think AJ Radical was in that one. I think I'd had a few. I'd have to watch that one back specifically, but I think I had a few character stuff. But I knew, like, if we nailed the entrance, we nailed like a good finish. You know, those are the moments.
Yeah. So what did it feel like to win the 907 Pro Wrestling Championship?
That was fun.
Yeah.
We had done like our own kind of like Money in the Bank thing prior to that, where I won the ladder match and like the contract. So at the point I was working heel. So like Northern Expansion Tour, I think I was kind of like Matt Cross. I can kind of say I kind of worked heel in that match, but for the rest of that tour, I was a face. But when I came back, I'm like, okay, for this to work as a faction, like, I want to be just like obnoxious heel.
Yeah.
White Goodman and Dodgeball. Then I just feel like the fans just liked it because it was entertaining. And throughout the course of 907 that year, that was 2022. So I had moved from Juneau to Anchorage at that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did a briefcase kind of cash in. One of my favorites and just like early inspirations of my career was Dolph Ziggler. And so I kind of did like a similar deal as the first time I ever did the zigzag, which I called the Zig Zen.
Love it.
Yeah. So did a little O-Temps. I think that's the best Money in the Bank. It's one of my favorite Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time was his. So we did that. And then that was kind of my transition into, working face there. And I've been pretty much a face since. That was 2-3 years ago.
So when I look at your career, your transformation for characters and personas, I love it. But I'm curious, how do you go? I don't know the order, but you go from a guy like the Yoga Ninja to Payne Unleashed. How did that one come to be?
Yeah, that's that whole character and story holds a very special place in my heart. That's actually one of my early backyard or trampoline wrestling characters. Nice. With the mask. It's the same mask. So it's like it's an old football mask that just over the years added tape and just made it more demented looking. So that character back in the day was known as the Kraken. Spelt like Kraken, which is like the Seattle Kraken. I didn't want to use that name because we're so close to like the Seattle, a lot of same sports fans.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's like I always wanted to like do a dark character. It was never the right time with any promotion I ever worked in. I pitched it a few times and they're like, no, you're like good looking baby face, or you're doing this, or you're shitbag heel. Like, it just, no promoter ever really like bought it or thought that I could pull it off. But I'm like, I'm, kind of similar almost to the realm as like the Young Bucks or the Hardys. Like, we played lots of characters growing up because we love wrestling. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I can play this character. Like, I'm, like Hardy's, RVD, ECW, big influence on me. But on the other side of that is Kane. like huge Kane fan, and the whole story with him unmasking and whatnot. So the Payne character came about. I want to do a scene where, you know, it kind of ties into anyone's life where you just go through dark times and you just kind of have a moment where you just like snap and become unhinged and you do everything opposite, which is true to your own character. And at the time, you know, babyface, yoga ninja, fun, bright colors, athleticism, healthy, in good shape, opposite of that. Right at the turn of that, you can find like the story arc of that. I start binge eating donuts.
Okay, yeah.
Right in front of the crowd. The crowd's just like, what? Because like at the time he was known for like this fit dude.
Yeah.
So how we got to the story was there's another Alaskan wrestler here. His name's Jerry Bishop, and he's known as the Giver. And so I pitched this to him and the promoter. And I was like, you know, what if we do a story where it's like after I lose the title to him, I kind of start going down like a downward spiral, you know, losing matches, but he's also taunting me with this gift, and it's a box, and it's mystery. Like you don't know what's inside it. I really was getting into listening to Eric Bischoff's podcast at the time, and how he was just talking about you want to create mystique and keep the audience hooked of like wanting to know like on the next episode. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, fans are going to want to know what's in this little box. And each time Jerry would come to the ring, it's like, it looked different. Sometimes it was like a silver box. Other times it was like wrapped up. And so we dragged that out for months. And then eventually we had a match where I fought one of his goons. And if I won, I got a title match. I got to reface him. If I lost, I had to accept his gift, but no one knew what it was.
Yeah.
And so I ended up I lost and had to accept this gift, and then I had to open it, and inside was the mask. And so this is where a lot of things from kind of what I'm influencing comes all one weird package. Familiar with Goosebumps?
Yeah.
Early Goosebumps book, the first episode is called The Haunted Mask.
Wow.
And that mask had like power over Carly Beth. So when she put the mask on, it kind of entranced that she became this character. Wow. So I took a little bit of that. A little bit of, I guess, just random horror movies. The Jackal from 13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
As you see, I had like the headpiece that I made later on with like the insane asylum kind of gimmick. So right after I accepted that, I kind of went crazy. And that was a plan too. Like, you know, I was fit and trim all through this era. I'm going to bulk up, even if it's like a dirty bulk, right? Put on some like body fat, and people were just like, what? And just dressed in like raggedy clothes. Like I took this, my gear, and like rubbed it in dirt.
Wow.
And just really just put myself into this character. And it was awesome, dude. Like it gave me a chance to kind of then wrestle and work with Chad and Preston, who are in that faction. I've always wanted to do something kind of different. This was right around the lines where, and I was kind of almost nervous about doing the character because I didn't want to play this character up here, but then like take a booking somewhere else and then be me again.
Yeah.
Or be Yoga Ninja again. I really wanted to like, no, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it. Even if it was a short period of time. That's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like, almost kind of like a Finn Balor demon kind of angle, like I could tap into it.
Yeah.
Eventually, you know, it worked out where Jerry and I had a match. He kind of had me under his trance or whatever for a little bit. I ended up having a match against him in the House of Pain match, probably one of the crazy ladder bumps that you saw. Yeah. I took the mask off, like Goosebumps episode, no longer was possessed by that. Left it in the ring, but then after it, I like came back to it for a little mystique and said, maybe I'll save this for a rainy day. And I've done a couple appearances since then. So it's just one of my alter egos now.
Yeah. I love your creativity. Like you go the extra mile. I love that about you.
Yeah. I mean, creativity, I think, is what pro wrestling is all about. I think that's what keeps, you know, guys say it all the time, reinventing yourself. Like Matt Hardy, you know, obviously a big fan, and just how all the things he did, Big Money Matt, Broken Matt, and then cycling back to his original character. That's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're fans and you have those early days where you're playing wrestling, and like I did theater in high school and stuff, so it's like I love the artistic side of that just as much as I love the athletic side.
Yeah, so when you look at your career, you've done some pretty cool things in wrestling, but I'm curious, how was your experience? How did Full Gear come to be for AEW?
Oh, Full Gear. That was it was a fake Sting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. So I think I did a WrestlePro show in Jersey around the same time. And so I was down there, and yeah, it was me and a few other Jersey guys. KM was one of them. And that was we had a cool little moment there with Jeff Jarrett getting the walkout. That was a big, what arena was that at? God, I should know. Top of my head, I don't.
I don't know the name, but I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Jersey. They had a huge crowd. I mean, they had a good crowd. It was like 15, maybe 20,000 people. And I remember going out there like in the Sting mask and just like, as of most people I've ever been,
Wow, yeah.
around like, I would say performing, but like working that, and just to see, like looking around, like I tried to take it all in. I think the last few years, maturing, you hear about it from veterans, is just like, taking the moment, take your time up on the stage, drink it in.
Yeah.
So.
What was it like wrestling for Ring of Honor?
That was a fun opportunity. That was a couple falls ago, 2023. Josh Woods. Yeah, I mean, that was always a goal early on. Big ROH fan to get there. That was in Seattle, and I was happy that it wasn't like, you never know, doing extra work or your first match, like, am I just gonna get squashed in like 30 seconds? But got to get a little offense in.
Nice.
Yep.
What was it like challenging for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship?
Oh, dude.
That's cool.
Stabbed through the heart. So that one didn't happen.
Really?
No, yeah. So unfortunately, that one was EC3 lost the title a week before, or a few weeks before the show happened. He lost it to Tom Latimer.
Yeah.
And then EC3 ended up, I think, he got hurt, like he hurt his ankle or something. So that match didn't happen, unfortunately.
So what was the replacement?
I think that was the one that ended up being Jay Lethal and Jack Cartwheel.
That's not a bad replacement.
No, I mean, so yeah, because Jay and Jack were supposed to have a singles match. And so, yeah, I think they inserted me and made it a triple threat. But yeah, dude, I was, there hasn't been many. I mean, in wrestling, you should never get your hopes up.
Yeah.
That one, even being older and a little more mature, like I did have my hopes up on that match. It did take a little piece of me, but I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Just like I made like a little montage video of that before, just to like all the guys that had held that belt. And I was just like, just to even stand like in the ring and like across from that with all that history.
Yeah.
Like I was a huge early TNA fan when they still used that belt, like Jeff Jarrett and Sting. And I don't know if Sting had it, but maybe I know AJ did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about your career, well, first off, has the NWA World Heavyweight Championship ever been defended in Alaska?
No. Oh, yes, once.
Okay.
And I forget the name. It was like in the 50s or 60s.
Okay.
It's been like a long time, and that was like one of the big draws of that show was like the NWA titles coming up here. But yeah, that was a stinger for sure. Personally, professionally, but like you said, it's. Life goes on. You got to be grateful for the moments that you do get, and remember that to never quite like get your hopes set on anything, because anything can happen at any point. Anyone can get hurt. That's a very fluid business.
So when we talk your career, whose idea is the Zebra Maker? Is that still yours?
Yeah, the Zebra Maker.
What's the inspiration behind this one?
So that's kind of a callback to. So right after I finished up with the Payne gimmick in the match, I kind of want almost to have like an identity crisis where I was like, okay, like he's a yoga ninja again, because I started teaming up with Chad and Preston, but I also wanted to do a thing where it's like I tapped into my roots into the Tyler Sexton character. Yeah. And it's like, like Shawn Michaels, Dolph Ziggler, like I wore zebra print back then, like any indie cocky, pretty boy wrestler did at one point or another. And so during the summer at our, we do like 2 local shows up here. One's out like a bar. It's like our bar show. And so I started doing hot yoga as like the third character of the yoga ninja. So I got the yoga ninja, I got hot yoga, and I got the psycho yogi, which is the masked version.
Yeah.
So hot yoga was kind of a callback to Tyler Sexton.
Nice.
And so I started wearing back like the zebra stuff and the jacket. And then over the course of the fall, I had this idea of like, I kind of want to be like this shaman type character, like kind of a little bit of like a yogi, but also like a little bit of the hot yoga. And at the time, so like I'm the strength and conditioning coach for the school.
Yeah.
And I was training both of our two top champions, Chris Wilde, who was like our Midnight Sun champion, and Orrin West, who was our 907, like our heavyweight champion. And I'm like, well, I'm like the shaman of champions. Like I turn horses into zebras.
Yeah.
I'm a zebra maker. And we came up with like a little faction called the Flex Equestrians. Chris as the unicorn.
Yeah.
Orrin as the Alaskan stallion, and then myself as the zebra or the zebra maker.
Wow.
So kind of, I don't know, even really know. That character has, it was maybe almost too complex. I think like almost like an image consultant or like a stylist meets like a fitness professional, just trying to enhance the image of wrestlers both artistically and athletically.
Wow. So when you talk your career, what would you say have been like your biggest test, your first big opportunities in wrestling?
My first big opportunities, I think the getting to Southern New England, like when I first started branching out from like, you know, the Vermont and Canada scene and going down to like Rhode Island, like, so like XWA, RWA, RICW, I think, well, it was RICW, and then it was like people at those shows, you know, brought me on to RWA to XWA. That I feel like brought me up a level to get to share some of those locker rooms with, again, guys like Carlito and like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe's at some of them. And then like just that indie scene in 2014, 2015 was like stacked before everyone got signed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say are like some of your biggest matches in your career?
I mean, it's weird, you know, because it's like personally I have ones that are like favorites. I'm like, oh man, I really, for different reasons, like I think that was like a good technical wrestling match. So it's like there's that category. Then it's like this one was just like the match I ended up having with the Mask with Jerry. Just the story that we tell, even though it's like we're in Indy and Alaska, you know, we're just like a speck on the microscope of pro wrestling, but like for what we did, for what I poured into that match, at the end of that match, it was a great physical match. And then the drama, it was like a movie that had drama, action, horror, like all in one.
Yeah.
I remember walking out from that match with like the biggest adrenaline boost I've ever had. Of just like, you know, going into the back and being like, I just jumped off a 14-foot ladder, but I was pumped. So like that one has a special place in my heart. Obviously, you know, doing the first televised match, AEW, like Rampage, that was cool.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick one. They're for different reasons, you know, creativity, technicality wise, just overall, like, you know, I guess your opponent wise or, you know, totem wise.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you've gotten to travel and see a lot of things through wrestling, but I'm curious, do you have like a favorite venue or place you performed at?
That's a good question. I think I mentioned this earlier when we first started talking, and I wish I could have wrestled there again. But this was like year one. This was in Montreal. It was like that nightclub or theater that they created or turned into like kind of like a nightclub bar thing. They had like burlesque at that show. They had like rock and roll music, and they had wrestling. And like the vibe in that place was just, it was cool. I mean, Montreal, like what a hotbed for a wrestling crowd. Anyways, that one sticks out really early on. Dang, I know there's got to be some others, but yeah, I mean,
what about Alaska? Is there like a location there that sticks out?
What's that?
What about Alaska? Is there a place that you've wrestled there that sticks out?
So we do our main shows at it's like a rec center. So that's like our family friendly show. It's a cool venue. It's open, so it's like I like those more like smaller, intimate kind of settings because the acoustics are better.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking of it. There was a match where I wrestled Tyson Dukes.
Nice.
That was up in Canada as well. That was like 2018. And that was like a small little amphitheater type thing, but just like there probably was maybe 100, 150 people there, not a lot, but like that doesn't matter. Like if you have a good acoustic setting with fans that are into it, like Canadian fans are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that one does stick out.
Nice.
But up in Alaska, so let's see.
I remember watching a live stream WrestlePro Alaska did. I forgot the name of the venue, but like there was Harley Davidson bikes in the back and everything.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, that one's cool. So that was the KC Navarro was at that one. We've been there a few times. Yeah, that one's unique. The locker room, not so much because you're legit in like a place where they're servicing motorcycles. So it's like there's grease and it's like there's dirt and there's like it's super tight. So it's like I'm really big on stretching and warming up before. And it's like if I don't have like a yoga mat or space to like warm up, I don't feel like I'm gonna get hurt or I'm too stiff. So yeah, cool venue with like the backdrop with the bikes, but terrible locker room.
Well, Tyler Payne, I want to thank you for joining me. However, I've ended every interview the same now. The day you decide it's all done in pro wrestling, which I don't hope is anytime soon, but the day you decide it's all done, what do you want Tyler Payne's legacy in wrestling to be?
I think you've touched on it a few times, the word creativity.
Yeah.
That's something I think I want to be remembered from. It's just like, oh man, like, that guy, like he put a little extra flavor into everything he did.
Yeah. I want to thank you for doing this, man. I remember texting you last week, and then you said yes right away. We made it happen, so thank you, man.
Yeah, dude, I really enjoyed some of your other episodes, like the one with the Logan brothers. I remember watching them as a young kid, or even a teenager going into learning about Chaotic. So that one really is how I got to learn about your podcast. So I'm excited to check out some other episodes. But thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for doing this, and you got to let me know next time you come down to Rhode Island.
All right, we'll do that, dude.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.